The components are pushed into the circuit board, and to connect them by hand, you would have to solder each one, which would take forever. Instead, you could dip the bottom into a special chemical, which cleans the wires. Next, hold it over a bath of melted solder, and as you lower it slowly, the solder touches the wires underneath and sticks to them, fixing all the components in place at once. The fat is taken from the dead person's body, then screened for diseases. Next, most of their DNA is removed, and the purified fat is sucked into a syringe. The doctor then injects it into your butt to make it look rounder. And since the dead person's fat has way less DNA, your body thinks it belongs there. So your cells attach to the tissues, setting it in place. But since it can cost up to $100,000, it's really only for rich people. The fat is taken from the dead person's body, then screened for diseases. Next, most of their DNA is removed, and the purified fat is sucked into a. He places the skewers onto the grill as heat from a volcano starts to cook it. You see, it had erupted there hundreds of years ago, but even now, the bedrock is still scorching hot. So if you pour water down a hole, it flashes into steam in seconds, and dry brush can even catch fire just by touching the surface. By placing a grill on top, the intense heat rises up from the ground and superheats the metal, giving the meat a perfect sear. Police would wear an electric rattle on their helmets that spun loudly, and it would alert other officers to rush in and to control riots. Next, a hose could be rolled out of their backpack, which held a portable water tank, allowing them to hose people down. And if anyone got too close, electric wires hidden in their sleeves could shock them into submission. And this is what people in the 1800s thought future police would look like. Now, some of these tools did get developed, just not exactly like they thought. Police would wear. As she drank, she swallowed the pearls whole in her boba tea, and since she did this regularly, her stomach couldn't digest them fast enough, causing them to pile up. The gooey pearls stuck together and blocked her intestines, which made it impossible to poop. Doctors finally took an X-ray and found over 100 pearls stuck inside her. But after giving her laxatives, the girl was finally able to go to the toilet again. When the moon is in the same part of the sky as the sun, its bright side faces away from us so we can't see it. Now, if you aimed a big flashlight at it, you might think you could light it up, but even the strongest flashlight only reaches around 3 miles. To fully light it up, you would need a flashlight so big, it would stretch almost all the way across America, and you would need over 3,600 times the total electricity used on Earth in a single day. But the heat would be so intense, it would boil the seawater around it, turning the sky white and cooking all the sea animals at once. When the moon her daughter painted her nails, but later that night, the girl died in her sleep. Her mother missed her so much that she refused to cut her nails. Mix the raw cornmeal with water and form it into a ball. Then put it in your mouth, rolling it and coating it with spit. This will break down the starches into sugar. Next, spit it out and repeat this until there's dozens of balls. Then lay them out to dry before boiling them with different spices for about an hour. After it cools, strain it into a giant clay pot, then cover it up. And as the days pass, the liquid will start to ferment, and over time, you'll have an ancient beer made from spit. Mix the raw cornmeal with water and form it into a ball. Then You would put on the headset and then lick the lollipop. And when your tongue touched the surface, tiny electric signals would pass through one of the gel packets inside, releasing a small drop of gel onto your tongue. As it mixed with your saliva, it would create the flavor, matching what appeared on screen, letting you taste virtual food without eating a single drop. You would put on the headset and then he sliced his palm just as he was removing a cancerous tumor from a patient. And those cancer cells entered his body through the cut. 5 months later, a lump began growing in that exact same spot. And tests showed that it was the same rare cancer he had removed from his patient. He needed surgery to remove it, but 2 years later, he was cancer-free. He sliced his palm just as he was removing a cancerous tumor from a patient. And those cancer cells entered his body through the cut. 5 months later, a lump began growing in that exact same spot. And tests showed that it was the same rare cancer he had removed from his patient. He needed surgery to remove it, but 2 years later, he was cancer-free. He sliced his palm just as if the driver slipped him some cash, the traffic cop would just let him go. And this happened all over the city. So the mayor fired almost 2,000 cops and hired a group of mimes. Instead of writing tickets, they made fun of jaywalkers and mocked dangerous drivers, which embarrassed them in public. Next, he sent out thumbs down signs to citizens, which they used to shame rule breakers, and the number of traffic deaths dropped by more than half. If the driver slipped him some cash, the traffic cop would just let him go. And this happened all over the city. So the mayor fired almost 2. The dog ran out of the woods and dropped a human skull onto the porch. A few months later, it brought back a shin bone. The police confirmed that both belonged to the same person who had been shot to death. So they put a tracker on the dog, and after a year of dead ends, it finally led them to the remaining bones, which were matched to this missing neighbor. But even though the body was identified, no one knows who killed him to this day. The dog, he planted wheat, vegetables, and sunflowers. Then he boiled seawater. The dog ran out of the woods and he planted wheat, vegetables, and sunflowers. Then he boiled seawater for 6 hours and baked it to make salt. Once the plants grew, he squeezed the sunflower seeds through a special tube to get oil. He took the eggs from a chicken and milked a cow to make mayonnaise, butter, and cheese. Then he crushed the wheat into a blender to get flour and baked it into bread. Finally, he killed the chicken to get the meat, which he fried and placed on a slice of bread before layering on cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, and mayonnaise, topping it with the bread, all to get a truly homemade sandwich that tasted okay. He planted. The toilets started overflowing while the lines for water became super long. And this was because the crowd was way too big. Some people were so thirsty they smashed open the pipes so they could get water faster, creating massive mud pits that many people jumped into. But the sewage from the bathrooms started leaking in, and without realizing what it was, some people spread it all over themselves, ending up with bleeding gums and painful sores all over their mouths. After all the injuries and dozens of other issues, it went down as one of the worst music festivals in history. The toilets started overflowing while they used floorboards to build the wings and stretched sheets across them before pouring hot porridge on top, hardening the fabric. Then they planned to tie the glider to a concrete-filled bathtub and push it off the roof. As the tub fell, it would pull the glider forward until the wings caught air, allowing them to fly to freedom. You see, the prisoners realized that the roof was out of the guards' view, meaning flying was the only way to escape. However, the war ended before they could attempt it. But decades later, a replica was built and flown from the same roof, proving the escape would have worked. They used floorboards to build the wings and stretched sheets across them before pouring hot porridge on top, hardening the fabric. Then they planned to tie the glider to a concrete-filled bathtub and push it off the roof. As the tub fell, it would pull the glider forward until the wings caught air, allowing them to fly to freedom. You see, the prisoners realized that the roof was out of the guards' view, meaning flying was the only way to escape. However, the war ended before they could attempt it. But decades later, a replica was built and flown from the same roof, proving the escape would have worked. They used floorboards. If you replaced the fake hot dog in a Wienermobile with a real one, it would be way too small. Instead, you would need to gather 180 pigs, grind the meat, and stuff it into one tube before cooking it. Then bake a 9,000-pound bun, reinforcing the bread so it won't collapse. Next, place a truck frame underneath. Hollow the hot dog from the inside before building a cage to keep it from caving in, giving you a drivable truck. But within a few hours, the meat would sweat and soak everything. Then it would start to rot, meaning everything would eventually fall apart. If you replaced the fake hot dog in a Wienermobile with a real, he shoved food into his mouth, trying to gain weight as fast as he could. You see, his father was dying, and a bone marrow transplant was his only chance. Now, the boy's body was a match, meaning his bone marrow could save his dad. But he was too small, and if he couldn't gain a little over 30 pounds, he wouldn't be able to do it, and his father would die. So he ate 5 meals a day, and after 3 months, he finally weighed enough, and the transplant was successful. He shoved food into his mouth, trying to. When the male firefly gets caught in a spider web, it'll blink normally with 2 lanterns flashing multiple times. But But after the spider wraps it with silk, it'll start glowing like a female, with only one lantern blinking. Now, some scientists think the spider venom is stopping them from getting enough oxygen to glow. But whatever the reason is, the light attracts all the nearby males. And instead of just getting one, the spider can end up trapping dozens of fireflies. When the male firefly, she picked up the call and heard her daughter sobbing for help while a man claimed he had her in his truck. The woman ran for help, but she was overwhelmed by the shock and her heart stopped beating. She collapsed to the ground and had to get shocked 3 times to survive. But when the police went to her house, they found the daughter perfectly safe. You see, they think the caller took her social media videos and used AI to make a copy of her voice, real enough to even trick her own mother. She picked up the call. They put a screen inside a helmet, then gave it a bucket for a body and pool noodles for arms. The robot was programmed to smile and was left on the side of the road to hitchhike. People driving past would offer rides, and after the story spread, dozens of strangers helped the robot cross Canada. It completed 2 more trips in Europe, sharing photos with thousands of followers. But when it reached the US, it was left on a bench in Philadelphia, where it was soon smashed to pieces as its head was stolen, putting an end to its adventure. They put a screen inside a helmet, then gave it a climb onto the bowl and grip the rope tightly with your non-dominant hand. When it kicks its front legs up, raise your dominant arm for balance and gently squeeze your legs around its sides, making sure that your posture is straight. And when the bowl raises its hind legs, push your hips forward while shifting your dominant arm to keep your balance. Keep repeating these movements until the ride ends, and then leave quickly, otherwise it might not end well for you. Climb onto the bowl and grip the rope tightly with your non-dominant. After the officer died in the line of duty, his squad car was later put up for auction. And when his son found out, he scraped together all the money he had, even asking the internet for help, hoping to hold on to this last piece of his dad. He raised $15,000, but at the auction, the bid kept going up, and he soon realized his chance was gone. The car was finally sold to a rancher for $60,000, but as soon as he got the keys, he immediately handed them over to the son, revealing that he planned to give it to him all along. The son hugged him tightly and was finally reunited with his father's car. The fly laid its eggs into tiny cuts on the cow, and when they hatched, the maggots would eat their way through the flesh, causing severe pain and even killing the cow. So special labs exposed millions of male flies to radiation, making them unable to make babies. These flies mated with females who only mate once, and the eggs they laid never hatched. After a few decades, they were completely wiped out in the US, so they closed several of the labs. But in recent years, the flies have started popping up in other countries, and they may start to appear in the US again. The fly laid its eggs into tiny cups. They would pull out the motor from an electric shaver before cutting the tip off an empty pen. Next, they would bend a toothbrush and tape the motor and the pen to each side. A piece of wire was sharpened into a point, then pushed into the pen tube, and a shirt button and pin would connect the tube to the motor. When they hooked it up to a battery, the motor would move the tube, pushing the sharp wire up and down. Ink was smeared on the prisoner's skin, and the needle pushed it inside, creating a prison tattoo that would usually get infected. They would pull out the motor from an Would you rather stand still for 15 minutes or go for a casual 15-minute walk? Well, even though standing sounds easier, most people would choose the walk. And this is because when you walk, your muscles take turns, contracting then relaxing. So blood keeps flowing and pain stays low. But when you stand still, your thighs and lower back stay switched on, and tight muscles block blood flow, causing them to ache. When you walk, your calves push blood back upward with each step. But standing slows that pump down, causing it to pool and building discomfort. Most of us would choose the walk because our bodies were built to move. Would you rather? When she died, her son stuffed her body in a closet. And since he didn't tell anyone, when the pins are hit, they crash into a flap, and a mechanical arm knocks over the others, sweeping them straight into a pit. At the same time, the ball rolls through a hole before riding back up to you. The second set of pins are set, and while you bowl, the old pins are riding up a conveyor belt, getting straightened by metal guides along the way. At the top, they're rotated in the right direction, sorted by a machine, and held in place until the lane is ready. And after your turn, a special table sets the pins down, ready for the next roll. When the pins are hit, they